Who take Bigfoot seriously don't take every alleged Bigfoot video seriously. In fact, they're often the first to call foul on the fakers. So when they tell us they've seen video they think is legit, we take a look too.
From being creepily stalked by the creature to staring it deep in the eyes, this man captured the most convincing images of Bigfoot ever taken. On a dark, quiet night, a man found himself face to face with a nightmare he could never have expected. The man remains anonymous, unwilling to let his identity be public, but his story has spread like wildfire because he captured something horrifying. Clear images of what can only be described as Bigfoot staring straight through his window. How did his story begin? It all started as an innocent escape that quickly turned into a chilling memory he'll never shake. Seeking peace, the man had retreated to a small cabin deep in Washington's wilderness, far from towns, people, and the constant noise of everyday city life. He was searching for calm, hoping the ancient trees and the serene winds would help him recharge. But nothing could prepare him enough for what he was about to encounter. On his second night, as he sat alone by the fireplace, soaking in the silence, a shadow crept up. At first, it was nothing, just something catching the corner of his eye. Maybe it was just the woods settling in. At least, that's what he thought. But as he got up to close the blinds, his heart dropped. Outside, through the cold glass of the cabin window, a face was watching him. And to make matters worse, it wasn't human. The figure's face was massive, framed by tangled dark hair. Its eyes were deep-set and gave off a faint, unnatural glow, piercing through the night with an unsettling intelligence. The creature stood tall on two legs in the shadows. His skin prickled as he realized it was watching him, studying him. Realizing this, every muscle in his body froze. He knew the stories about the creature and had heard the legends people laughed about. Yet here he was, staring into the face of one of those very tales.
I saw the top of the head, and that caught my attention. It moved closer, and I seen its eyes, and were freaking huge. And it scared me because bear eyes aren't that large or far apart. I always have a camera handy to get a good shot of the elk that come extremely close to the house. When I realized it wasn't a bear, fear struck me hardcore.
Gathering what little courage he had left, he reached for his phone. His hands shook, making the first few photos blurry. But he kept clicking, each flash lighting up the creature's face for a brief, terrifying instant. Despite the flashlight, the creature didn't flinch. Instead, it only seemed more curious, almost entertained by his shaky movements. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the creature turned and vanished into the darkness beyond the cabin's glow, leaving the man with nothing but his hammering heartbeat and a deep, bone-chilling fear. Following this scary encounter, the man couldn't sleep. Hours passed, and with every creak and rustle from outside, he imagined the creature coming back.
A man claimed that a Bigfoot came to him while hunting in North Carolina.
When dawn finally broke, he dared to look at the photos. Most were blurred messes, but a few captured a clear, undeniable outline of something massive and powerful lurking outside his window. Still shaken, he thought of sharing his experience with the world. However, he feared ridicule from the masses. This is because Bigfoot sightings, after all, often ended with accusations of hoaxes and attention-seeking. But he also knew he had witnessed something rare, maybe even groundbreaking. After much hesitation, he decided to post the pictures online, using a fake name to avoid backlash. He uploaded them to several Facebook groups that focused on the subject, hoping to connect with people who might believe him. And the images went viral. Almost instantly, Bigfoot enthusiasts and researchers got hooked by his story, their excitement causing countless debates online.
It's been said that Bigfoot exhibits nocturnal behavior, perhaps to hunt or to avoid detection.
Some claimed this was it, the proof they had been waiting for. People shared his photos across forums, blogs, and social media, and stories poured in from others who swore they had seen the same creature in the forests of Washington. And just like that, the online debates began. Some skeptics examined the photos, pointing out the blurry edges, the lack of a video, and the absence of any other witnesses to confirm the man's claims. To them, the story seemed too perfect, just another tall tale thrown into the mix. But to those who believed, the details only strengthened their conviction. They noted the unique posture of the creature in the specific spot where it stood, and even compared these images to older sightings, finding eerie similarities. They saw these new photos as confirmation, believing they had finally glimpsed the forest's most elusive giant. Despite posting the images, the man refused to get pulled into the chaos. He'd said what he had to say, and he'd shown what he'd captured. He let the photos speak for themselves, watching as his anonymous story took on a life of its own. With the attention the viral post was getting, the questions began. Why was Bigfoot watching him? What had brought this creature so close to a human dwelling? Some speculated that Bigfoot might be a nocturnal creature that got out only at night to avoid human eyes or to hunt in peace. That theory fits perfectly with this sighting, but it also raised the fear factor. The creature had shown itself at night, not out of chance, but by choice. This made people question whether Bigfoot was intentionally stalking the man, or it was just a curious encounter. As more people debated, new theories emerged, each one stranger and more chilling than the last. Researchers noted that tales of creatures like Bigfoot in Washington dated back centuries, long before European settlers arrived. The tribes of the Pacific Northwest, including the Salish, Yakima, and Lumi, had spoken of a similar being.
Each year, there are hundreds of Bigfoot sightings across the country. Some people devote their lives to the pursuit of the creature. While there's no conclusive proof Bigfoot exists, when some new evidence pops up, you can bet we're going to check it out.
A hairy, towering figure they called Sasquatch. According to their lore, Sasquatch was a powerful but reclusive guardian of the forests, a creature respected and feared. For these tribes, the Sasquatch was not merely a tale, but a presence, a protector of nature itself. It stayed hidden, only emerging when disturbed or curious. Could this creature have been watching the man out of sheer curiosity? Or was it something darker, a warning, a reminder that some parts of the forest were never meant to be disturbed? The days passed, but the man's unease remained. Each night, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was just outside, hidden but aware, watching him from the safety of the shadows. He tried to rationalize it, tried to tell himself it was a one-time thing, but the images lingered in his mind. He could see the creature's eyes faintly glowing in the dark, a silent reminder of the night terror he had encountered all by himself. Online, his story continued to grow, splitting people between believers and doubters. But for those who felt the truth in his words, the photos were a haunting glimpse into something they'd only ever dreamed about. Some saw them as proof, others as a mystery, but all agreed on one thing. There was something out there in those woods. Something that wasn't supposed to exist, at least according to mainstream science. The man's story, his photos, and the fear that followed him became a part of the legend, an addition to the endless tale of Bigfoot sightings. Yet, to him, it was more than a story. It was a memory, a piece of his life that had been twisted by the unknown. Now, every time he thinks back to that night, a shiver runs down his spine.
Really exists, you think one of those cameras would have documented the creature by now. Well, maybe one did. Watch this.
He remembers the cabin, the silence, the slow, terrible realization that something was watching him. But what scares him most, even in his thoughts, is the fact that he stared at the creature in his eyes. And though he escaped without harm, he knows he'll never truly feel safe again. Not with the knowledge that something out there, something wild and hidden, had chosen to reveal itself to him. But he was not the only one who had encountered the creature and lived to tell the story. Some witnesses have claimed to have witnessed the creature multiple times. Barb Shoup's encounters. Barb Shoup's fascination with Sasquatch began when she was just a child. The mystery around these elusive creatures ignited her curiosity, and she always hoped to encounter one herself. The first time she heard about the creature was an evening in the 1970s when her family went camping at Spirit Lake Campground near Mount St. Helens. The rangers gathered the kids around a bonfire and told scary tales about the wilderness and strange encounters, including the eerie story of Ape Canyon, where miners once reported attacks from strange ape men. When the rangers began the storytelling, Barb was hooked from the beginning, unlike her younger brother, who found the story too terrifying. Growing up in a time without the internet, she could only catch bits and pieces from occasional TV specials. Yet, the desire to encounter one stayed with her. As Barb got older, her curiosity about Sasquatch became more than a passing interest. She found herself drawn to the woods, seeking solitude, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to uncover the truth behind the legends. But like many, due to no direct contact with the creature, she got frustrated and chose to believe that Sasquatch was just folklore.
If a tree falls in a forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? Maybe not. But what about 100 trees? And what if they could have been knocked down by a raging Bigfoot?
It wasn't until the early 1990s, when Barb first set foot on a trail near her cabin, that she stumbled onto something strange that defied her expectations. One spring day in April of 1992, Barb was walking along a logging road near her cabin when she noticed broken trees lining the path. Something about the snapped-off tops caught her attention, as if they hadn't fallen naturally. Curiosity drove her to step deeper into the woods, where she discovered something she couldn't ignore: a perfect footprint. At that moment, Barb realized she was looking at something far from ordinary. In her mind, she tried her best to visualize how the creature had taken a step on uneven ground, causing its foot to slip. The print left behind was crystal clear, pressed deeply into the dirt. She could see how it had stepped between two trees, snapping their tops off as if in frustration or warning. This discovery had her questioning everything she'd once assumed about Sasquatch. But even then, she thought it might have been just one creature passing through, never dreaming it might belong to a family of Sasquatches. For the next few years, she occasionally stumbled across odd signs and wondered if they were linked to Sasquatch. Yet she would always brush these thoughts away, reasoning, if there were Sasquatches around here, I'd know about it. People would talk. Or so she thought. Then in 2006, Barb experienced something even stranger that made her wonder if her cabin was closer to these creatures than she'd ever imagined. She was outside, trimming a stick she'd found while searching for her missing cat, when a big, black, furry object suddenly dropped from the top of a tree. It bounced off, hit the roof of her cabin, then disappeared from her view, leaving her shocked. When she looked for what had fallen, there was nothing but a stunned, fluffed-up chicken on the porch. Barb tried to rationalize it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that it might have been a young Sasquatch. While the thought seemed too wild to accept, she kept asking herself where its mother would be, since it was unlikely that the baby would be wandering alone. It wasn't until 2012 that her suspicions were confirmed. While watching a herd of elk near her cabin, Barb saw a large, dark figure trailing behind them. She knew, at that moment, what she'd seen years ago had indeed been a baby Sasquatch. The more time she spent in the woods, the more strange occurrences began to pile up. One evening, while out again searching for her missing cat, Barb heard something peculiar from the creek, a noise that began as an owl's hoo-hoo, but quickly dropped into a deep, menacing growl. She knew no bird could make a sound like that. Alone in the woods at night, the growl left her on edge, wondering just what might be watching her from the darkness. As the years went by, Barb started noticing other peculiar things. Rocks would be thrown near her, trees and branches arranged in odd ways, and piles of sticks would appear in the woods, as if intentionally placed by something. She even witnessed glowing orbs darting among the trees, yellow lights that bounced around like playful spirits. Though she initially dismissed these as spirits of forest animals, she later began to connect them to Sasquatch activity. But things got even more real. Barb soon came face to face with what she would later call the Cloaker event.
It's been said that Bigfoot exhibits nocturnal behavior, perhaps to hunt or to avoid detection. But the cloak of darkness couldn't hide the creature in the stunning footage you're about to see.
A moment that forever changed her beliefs about Sasquatch. Barb and her friend Sandy had organized a campout for people interested in Sasquatch, attracting followers from her YouTube channel eager to experience the woods where Barb had so many encounters. One day, they took a group hike along a trail by her cabin. Barb had her camera ready, but wasn't actively filming. As they went on, they caught sight of a fallen tree snapped in the middle, an odd sight. She suddenly spotted something about 80 feet from where they were standing. A black, triangular-shaped head appeared above the undergrowth, then took off running, all arms and legs covered in hair. It was gone before anyone else could react. But Barb wasn't the only one to witness something strange that day. A few hikers who had stayed back on the trail saw what looked like a small black monkey coming down a tree head first before it disappeared into the bushes. The sight of this small creature confirmed Barb's suspicion. There were indeed multiple Sasquatches in the area, possibly a family. Later that evening, she reviewed her camera footage, hoping to catch a glimpse of the creature. What she saw on the screen, however, was unlike anything she'd ever expected. The figure was barely visible, shifting in and out as if it were cloaked, much like the creature from the Predator movies. The realization was stunning. Barb could hardly believe what she was seeing. I'd seen Sasquatches vanish before, she recalled, but I always found ways to rationalize it. This time, though, she had proof on camera, something she couldn't easily dismiss.
So there's a lot here that Bigfoot hunters find fascinating. One thing is the gait, especially the big strides, right? Big strides, this space through here, and the low swinging arm movement. They say that's not human. Also, the detail in the hair. They say it's too natural to be a costume.
She shared her footage with others, and they watched it on a larger screen, confirming that this was beyond normal explanation. For Barb, this revelation cracked open a new world of possibilities, forcing her to accept that Sasquatches might possess abilities that defied common understanding. From that moment, she realized the paranormal side of Sasquatch was real. But the strangeness didn't end there. Not long after, she joined a group campout in the Blue Mountains, an area known for mysterious happenings. During her stay, she saw eyes glowing in the darkness and felt strange energy, a sensation she later called being zapped or sizzled. She'd heard of others experiencing this phenomenon, but feeling it firsthand was a different and scary feeling altogether. At this point, Barb knew these creatures were around her, watching her, maybe even communicating with her in ways she didn't fully grasp. Returning from the Blue Mountains, Barb felt an odd mix of excitement and dread. She could no longer deny that the creatures were aware of her presence and capable of things that seemed supernatural. Despite her logical mind trying to reject these experiences, she could no longer ignore the reality of it. She still struggled with this duality, knowing they were there but battling the natural tendency of the brain to rationalize things. The woods had forever changed for her as she began seeing her surroundings with new eyes. Today, Barb regularly encounters signs of Sasquatch near her cabin. Rarely does a month go by without some indication of their presence. Sometimes she hears knocks echoing through the trees. Other times, a vocalization echoes in the distance, responding to her voice. Occasionally, they leave her gifts, small trinkets and stones, perhaps as gestures of acknowledgement.
For decades, researchers have been trying to communicate with Bigfoot. But have you ever wondered who he is trying to communicate with?
With all these signs that have been going on for years, Barb believes that none of these occurrences are random. They all seem deliberate, purposeful acts from these creatures. Reflecting on these years of encounters, Barb feels as if she's been taken down a path she never could have expected. The mystery and wonder of it all continue to unfold, as if she's only scratching the surface of something much larger than herself. A couple's dog encounter with Bigfoot leaves lasting scars. To date, Washington State remains the world's top spot for reported Bigfoot sightings, with the Olympic Forest and Peninsula standing out as one of the most active places to see the mysterious creature. This reputation has kept the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch team busy, driving them to search the area and examine any signs pointing to Bigfoot's presence. But then one day, they received a message that made them rethink everything about what they'd been hunting. It was from a man named Joseph S. He had experienced something strange in the woods, but hadn't been sure who to talk to without being laughed at. When he found RMS, he finally thought his story might make sense to someone. According to Joseph, the encounter happened back in 2016. He was walking a trail in Olympic National Park with his girlfriend and their dog, a large Rottweiler named Tina. After finishing their hike, they decided to take a shortcut to get back home faster. But something else was waiting for them that day. They hadn't gone far when Tina, usually a fearless and protective dog, began to whine. The couple found this strange, since Tina was never easily scared. Normally, she would stay in front, alert and on guard, growling if she spotted another animal.
She was whining and walking behind my girlfriend's legs, when she is normally in front and on guard. We were confused and we started to observe our surroundings with more attention. Just 50 feet away from us, We spotted something big and orange moving and crossing the trail.
But on this trail, she was whining and hiding behind Joseph's girlfriend's legs. The couple stopped, now fully alert, realizing something must be nearby. Then, they saw it. About 50 feet down the trail, something big and orange crossed their path. It looked like a large man, covered head to toe in thick, shaggy orange hair with jet black skin. Joseph stared at the creature's skull. It was a weird mix between a human and a gorilla, and its face didn't look quite right. The proportions were odd. The mouth was too wide, the ears too small, and the forehead sloped forward, giving it a heavy, almost monobrow look. Its nose was flat but oddly human-like, and its eyes were dark, with no whites visible. The couple and Tina were frozen in fear, trying to grasp what they were seeing. From where they stood, Joseph guessed that the creature had to be around 8 to 10 feet tall. The creature's frame was broad and muscular, with massive shoulders and arms. In its left hand, it was holding a black, bloody carcass. Although Joseph couldn't tell exactly what kind of animal it was, it looked big, and the creature held it as easily as someone might carry a rabbit. As Tina whimpered again, the creature turned its head and looked right at them. The movement was so fast that Joseph barely had time to react while his girlfriend covered her mouth, likely to stop herself from screaming. The creature appeared startled, staring at them for about 5 seconds, then it turned and took off. It went from a slow walk to a sprint in a flash, disappearing into the trees. Once it was gone, the couple didn't waste any time, hurrying along the trail to exit the park as quickly as possible.
I heard stories about Sasquatch since I was a kid, and I think me and my girlfriend saw one that day. RMSO responds, appreciate the in-depth details of the creature you wrote to us. We found a lot of Bigfoot evidence during an expedition to Olympic Forest.
Afterward, Joseph felt certain that what they'd seen was a Sasquatch. Growing up, he'd heard stories of the creature, but now he'd seen it with his own eyes. When he shared his story with RMS, they responded, agreeing that they had found similar evidence during their explorations of the Olympic Forest. According to the group, the Olympic Peninsula is one of the hottest spots for Bigfoot sightings worldwide. Joseph felt a bit relieved that RMS took his experience seriously and told them about what happened after the sighting. But then things got bad for Tina. Before the encounter, Tina had been a brave dog, known to bark and growl at anything, even bears. But after that day in the woods, she changed. Joseph said that she became fearful of nearly everything, from people to other dogs and even smaller animals. Concerned, the couple took her to a vet, who told them she seemed to have developed some form of trauma. When the vet asked what might have happened, Joseph shared that they had encountered a large animal in the woods, though he left out that it might have been Bigfoot. The vet replied that whatever it was must have been massive to have frightened Tina like that. RMS found Joseph's account fascinating. They thanked him for sharing his story, noting that they'd encountered signs of Bigfoot in that same area. From being creepily stalked by the creature to staring it deep in the eyes, this is how the man captured the most convincing images of Bigfoot ever.